Hello, in this video tutorial I'm going to talk about fonts and how to access them, how to load them, and some of the problems you might see with fonts. First, to access our fonts, we have quite a few of them. In the resources folder, our campus has invested in quite a few fonts, and if we scroll down to the very bottom in the resources folder, you will see it says fonts for educational use only. Fonts are legally protected by copyright law. If you did not purchase the font, you don't own it, and therefore you may not use it for financial gain. So these are for educational use only. You may not use these after you graduate, and I certainly would not use these to do freelance work. Now, I do have instructions on how to load fonts here, but I'll also cover that in this demo. Now I'm going to click on the underlying link that says Fonts for Educational Use Only, and you will see that there is an attached file. Now this is 89 megabytes. This is a big file, even though it's zipped. Zip means it's compressed. So if you right-click on that Fonts Organized by Name file, and you save link as, I would recommend you just put it someplace safe. I'm going to put mine on my desktop. Now I already have it on the desktop, so I'm not going to do it again because this would take about 10 minutes. So I won't hit save, but you would. I'm going to hit cancel. Now I'm going to minimize Blackboard, and this is what I have on the desktop. I have this zipped file. And if you double click on the zip file, it will unzip on a Mac, and it will create a folder. Actually, it'll create a second folder. Sorry, my mouse isn't working quite properly. Make sure it's plugged in. Actually, my pad isn't either, so we'll just deal with it. So here's fonts organized by name, and we have display fonts, which most of these we won't be using for this class. They're extremely decorative, and we need to learn to use fonts and typefaces judiciously, and these are a little over the top. And many of them are overused and abused, and if you make fun of them, or if you use them, you will be made fun of in the professional world. Not all of them, but yeah, this is not good typography. You will definitely be made fun of if you use a lot of these different typefaces. So we probably shouldn't even put them in here. That one's kind of interesting. Okay, so decorative display type, we're going to close that. We do have sans serif and serif. Sans serif fonts mean that they have no finishing strokes. So let me just go to a Chronos display. So you can see that there's no splaying at the ends. No little, well, there's a tiny little serif there, but the majority of these letters do not have serifs. So these are sans serif. Sans means without. Serif is the finishing stroke. So all of these should be sans serif, or serif, depending on where you're from. Now, the serif fonts, these would contain typefaces that have serifs on the ends. You can see that those are the finishing strokes at the ends, which you know the Rowan Masons were responsible for creating those initially. Don't know why. Maybe it was a mistake and then they liked it. Nobody really knows that as far as I know. But all of these typefaces, these have serifs. Now, so you now have, I believe it's 2,000 different font files. Now that means, there's 4 just in Americana, so you don't have 2,000 different typefaces, because each of these typefaces comes in various styles: bold, italic, bold, condensed, and so on. Okay, so on a Mac, we're going to load a font. Now I like to use a thing called Extensis Suitcase Fusion. It's great software for font management. However, I don't have it on this particular computer. So I'm going to do it the kind of quick and dirty way. Let's say I wanted to load Aldus. Looks like I've got a couple copies of Aldus in here. So let's say I wanted to load Aldus Roman. I double click on it. It gives me a preview of what that typeface looks like. And then I click Install Font. Now if you have already loaded it, then it may come up with a note that says, hey, there's some problems. So it's already been loaded, I do know that. So is italic, you can see it right here. Let's say I want to load Americana. Let's try this one. Americana Standard. I'm going to install the font. Now, what it does is it only installs the Roman version. If you want italics, you need to install it separately. If you want extra bold, you need to install it. And if you want regular bold, install it. Usually when I'm dealing with a typeface, I install all the fonts of that typeface, font files, and which have all the different styles, bold, italic, etc. So here I have American Standard here, and all of those have been loaded, but I had to load them all individually. Okay? Now that's how you load them on a Mac with just FontBook. Now if you're on a PC, you don't have FontBook. On a PC, what you would do is in the lower left-hand corner, there's the Start button. Now I'm on a Mac, there's the Apple. I'm on a Mac, so I don't have a Start button, but you click on the Start button in the lower left-hand corner. You would come up to choose Control Panel in that Start area. And in the Control Panel, when it opens up, there should be a Fonts folder in there. If you don't see a Fonts folder, you may have to click on the words that say, there's a phrase that says Switch to Classic View. When you switch to Classic View, you'll see a Fonts folder. Now, you will have to click and drag or hold down the Shift key and grab each of the fonts that you want to load, not the folder. PCs do not recognize the folder as a font. Macs do, but PCs don't. So on a PC, you would have to grab the fonts you want, the font files, not the name of the typeface, but the actual fonts. And you can either copy them and then go to the Control Panel Fonts folder, open the Fonts folder, and paste them. That will load them. Now you want to keep a log of what typefaces you loaded and what date you loaded them. This is a paper log. I know it sounds old-fashioned, but if your computer locks up because your fonts are having conflicts, you can't get to that log. So try to keep a paper log of what fonts you loaded when. Your computer can act as if it has a virus, and it will not act right at all. It'll shut down on you without notice and give you all sorts of problems. Now I'm going to open InDesign, and I'm just going to create any old document. I really don't care. And I want to just make sure that these fonts are actually loaded. Now in InDesign, there's the Type tool. Let me widen this out a little bit. T is for Type. Now you do have to click and drag and draw a container for the type. I'm going to type in the word Aldous because I know that was a font I loaded. Make this bigger. And by making it bigger, I'm selecting all of it, and I'm holding down Shift, Command, and greater than, which is at the period key. If you're on a PC, it'd be Shift, Control, greater than, but I'm on a Mac. Mac are industry standard for graphic design, just for your information. That's why we use them. Now I'm going to highlight the font name that's in here, the typeface name. I'm going to start typing Aldous. Oh, there it is. And I can also click and drag down and find it. Now, this has an O and it has an STD at the end. This is the font I loaded. It's not something that came preloaded on the computer. The O stands for OpenType. This works on both Mac and PC. And I can choose either Roman or italic. Here's the style area. Here is the font and style area, both. Okay. Now on a Mac, you can also, this is a really cool trick, and you guys need to get used to doing this. If you hold down Shift and Command, and then you have the selection tool, or some people call it the black arrow tool. If you hold down Shift and Command, or it'd be Shift and Control on a PC, if you click and drag, you will see, when you click and drag slowly, you will see you can increase the size of your headline or decrease it very, very quickly, and it stays in proportion, meaning the letters don't stretch. They don't do this. This is very, very, very bad typography. Do not stretch or condense letters like this. use either extended or condensed typeface. Don't stretch them like this. You'll be made fun of by professionals. So if you hold down Shift and Command or Shift and Control on a PC, click and drag, it does not stretch it out of proportion. Do not stretch images out of proportion. Do not stretch type out of proportion. The only way I would stretch type out of proportion is if I were trying to get the idea of crammed space or something, but I would still probably just use a condensed or expanded or extended typeface. Okay, so there's a little InDesign. There's a little how to load fonts. And I think I'll quit this demo now, and we'll talk about InDesign in more detail in the next video. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy playing with your fonts.